The truth is, you are probably doing way better with your money than you think, even if it doesn't feel like it. So in today's video, I wanted to share 4 signs that indicate whether or not you are doing well financially. And if that doesn't apply to you, I would also share how you can get back on track. Number 1, are you on the right paths? There are 2 paths that determine how well we're doing financially. And I have found out that mainly when we feel we're behind, it is because we are threading on the first path, which is the path of comparison, where we are constantly measuring our success in comparison to others. Ultimately, it's a path of illusion because the moment you start comparing your achievements to that of others, your achievement starts to shrink, even if what you have achieved is quite remarkable. It does follow the social comparison theory that individuals tend to determine their own personal and social worth based on how they stack up against others. Continuing on this path may cause you to fall into the trap of positional bias, where you're constantly comparing upwards to the point where decisions like the brands of your clothes, your shoes, the type of car you drive is based on what will put you on the same level as those you compare yourselves with. The biggest issue with comparison is you look at things in parts instead of as a whole. For instance, you may look at the slew of young millionaires on social media and compare yourselves to them, but what you don't see is a long list of variables that put them in that position. Maybe they started investing early, or they took a loan earlier on to launch a business and that business popped off. It could be that they live in a more developed country where things work. It could be as a result of a business connection, or even the pandemic boom that created a lot of internet millionaires and influencers. You just never know because there are a lot of variable factors. Knowing this, perhaps it's better to engage in the third form of comparison, which is the temporal comparison, where you appraise your current self by looking to your former and future self. Take a look at where you were 3 years ago. Is there a progression? Feel free to pause and answer that question, because that leads us straight to the second path, which is the path of positioning. This is all the work that goes on behind the scenes to put you in a position where you're gradually moving towards financial freedom. The Resolution Foundation reports that 26% of people in the UK use credit card to fund basic expenses, and the average credit card debt is £2,452, while in the US, the average non-mortgage debt amongst millennials is $29,702. So while I understand that the cost of living crisis is at an all-time high, if you can avoid using credit card debt to fund your most basic needs, or you have no credit card debt at all, you're already doing better than most of the populace. I love this quote from Robert Kiyosaki that says, "It's not about how much money you make, but how much money you keep, how hard it works for you, and how many generations you keep it for." The goal is to make sure the assessment of your financial status is not based on the path of comparison, because that is like glancing at a carefully manicured social media feed. You see the best part while the rest of it is left out. Number 2, what should you be earning? According to the ONS, the average annual pre-tax salary in the UK is £28,000, while in the US, it is $53,490, according to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics. But that is going to be dependent on different factors such as your age, your work experience, your social status, and those with above average earnings. If we drill in, we can see that the income increases with age. So while you may see a lot of 20-something-year-olds saying they earn $1 million, that is not the norm. On the average, between the ages of 20 to 29, the annual income is £22,932, while between the ages 30 to 39, it is £37,544. So if you're wondering why you don't have £100,000 saved yet, you are not the problem. Secondly, there is considerable research that it is relative income rather than absolute levels of income that make people happy. So it doesn't matter how much you earn. You're either likely to be satisfied or dissatisfied based on your comparison group. There is a theory called the Easterlin paradox that shows that happiness doesn't increase over time despite very large increases in average income. That means even if we earn significantly higher, there are chances that we still find that below average based on the people around us. This can put you in a never-ending loop of discontent, because as you rise through different levels of your financial success, so does the benchmark you use to measure. So you're never truly satisfied. How do you rise above this? I'm going to share actionable tips in a minute, but first let's look at the third sign, which is to have the 3 fundamentals in place. The first of the 3 fundamentals is to have an emergency fund. In the most recent money stats, 1 in 6 adults in the UK have no savings at all. And according to ONS, 23% to 33% of people living in the UK cannot afford an unexpected expense of £850, while Bankrate reports that 56% of people in the US can't afford a $1,000 emergency expense. So if you're in the UK and you have £1,000 saved up, or you're in the US and you have $1,500 saved up, then you're doing better than a lot of people. When you have an emergency like changing your car tires or fixing plumbing issues or a sudden loss of income, having an emergency buffer gives you room to think and get yourself back on track. If you haven't already, you can start working towards an emergency fund by putting aside a percentage of your income into a high yield interest savings account with a minimum interest rate of 5%. It could also mean starting a business on the side or taking an extra shift at work. I will suggest learning a high income skill separate from your day job, and I have a video right here to help you with that. I was able to make an extra £1,000 within a month because I learned the high income skill, and this one thing has come through for me at several points in my life. That leads me to the second fundamental, which is to have an investment plan. An investment plan shows that you're thinking about your finances in the long term. This could mean contributing to your 401k if you're in the US or to a stocks and shares ISA if you're in the UK. Depending on where you're watching from, please find out the investment options available to you, because the earlier you start, the earlier you can take advantage of compound interest. It could also mean investing in assets that will yield more in the long term, like real estate or equipment for your business. And the final part of this three is to have a financial plan. The Financial Capability Survey shows that 39% of UK adults don't feel confident about managing their money. Getting ahead financially requires a plan. It requires you to know how much you earn and how much you spend. It also requires you to know how each month is different based on the financial choices that you make, how you intend to pay your debt, and in what order they should be paid. When you have a month-by-month overview of where your money is going, it's easier to remember to cancel subscriptions, chase an overdue invoice, get your refunds, take advantage of cashbacks, and travel points. Essentially, your financial plan is your financial health and forecast based on your past, current, and future actions. So by having an emergency fund to cover unexpected expense, an investment plan to secure your future, and a financial plan to avoid debt, you're already way ahead of most people. In order not to second guess yourself, you need to distinguish between the hype versus the real. I love the way Dave Ramsey puts it. No one else gets to decide your standard of living. It's really easy to get sucked into the hype of owning luxury goods as a way to measure material success, buying a new car for external validation, splurging masquerading as your woke era, and other lifestyle crap. But by redefining what success means to you, you release yourself from the pressure to impress, perform, and conform. The hype is basically a shiny object syndrome that derails you from a set plan, such that you're always chasing the latest strategy or tactic instead of focusing on what matters to you when it comes to financial success. So those are the 4 signs that tend to determine whether we're progressing financially and how on track or off track we are. I hope you got some value by watching this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so more people can find this, and I will catch you in my next one. Thanks for watching.